Now, if you've been a stacker long enough, you know better than anybody. The stacking community is all about the what ifs. What if the currency collapses? What if SHTF? What if this or that becomes legal or illegal? One thing that I've never really heard anybody speculate about, but which I think deserves some attention, is the premium environment. Premiums on gold and silver. Now, these days, especially post 2020, premiums have been out of control since the beginning of the pandemic. It really has become kind of discouraging, actually, to think about how much you're getting charged in premiums to get the bullion that you love and deserve. Now think about that. Premiums. What is it really? Now you'll hear different I would say reasons for premiums. Oh, well, that's what the dealer has to charge to make their profit, their cut, whatever. But really, shouldn't that be kind of incorporated into spot? Now, I could see spot, again, being just the raw metal itself, and premiums being, the generation of the, actual bullion, taking that raw metal and turning it into bullion. I can see that there's a cost for that, and people got to make money, right? They got to employ people, they got to, make a markup to keep the business going. Okay, all of that makes perfect sense. But really, when you think about the longer term and the environment, again, post-pandemic, how it's really operated, think about what the premiums have been, since 2020. They've been out of control. I mean, think about eagles. Nothing changed with regard to producing, a American silver eagle, and yet the premiums on them were insane. At times, 30-40% premiums? Crazy things that people were paying. And people were paying them, apparently. Otherwise, there would be a huge overstock of 2020, 2021, eagles. Secondly, I mean, this coincided with the change to the Type 1 to Type 2 eagle. So, I mean, it's kind of crazy. But let me ask you a question. If the government decided to step in and say, you know what? We did believe that, metals, let's say silver and gold, are actually, a viable currency mechanism. You see a lot of this with the gold back, for example. People trying to recreate what was before. Oh, gold and silver's been, money for ages, and it'll be again. And, when all this paper fiat, not likely. And if that kind of thing does happen, again, we're back in the straight up dark ages. I mean, anything and everything will kind of, come to pass. It doesn't have to be metals. People will be trading bread, water, knowledge, anything and everything, as a medium of value. Now, again, people's first thought, especially stackers, is going to be that, oh, well, metals are an easy choice because, hey, it allows you to, have a physical thing. They're kind of uniform. Everybody kind of knows something about it. So, that's an easy way to fix that situation. Not so fast. Realistically, like when I think about this logically and how things can play out, I ask myself, like, is it viable, even before something like the SHTF, if the government stepped in and said, hey, we're going to produce from the US Mint silver coinage, or even, let's say not even coinage, let's say bullion rounds, so straight up bullion rounds, but bullion rounds that are sold for a set price over spot. So literally, let's say $1 over spot. They'd be a uniform type of, bullion, whether it's something like these sunshine rounds or just something easily recognizable, obviously a set weight of ounces, whether it be gold or silver, and allow those to be bought directly from the mint, as opposed to the current environment we have, which is dominated by the online bullion dealers. They are the primary mechanism of distributing, bullion. This whole idea of primary dealers, but getting sold, silver eagles and gold eagles directly from the mint, and then you having to buy through them for the most part, it sounds so suspect, right? It doesn't sound right. The reality is, like, in my opinion, is that the US Mint should be direct to consumer. There should be no third party involved, no markup for a third party, no third party, manipulating the flow of goods and services from the mint. It's kind of a crazy, it's kind of a crazy thing to think about when you think about it like that. However, I do see the flip side of that, which is the mint isn't set up to distribute the way that, these bullion dealers are. So I can see why there's an issue with it. But let's say hypothetically that this happened, that, a law was passed that the US Mint is going to produce a set. The problem I have, like, I'm trying to wrap my head around is whether it could be a coin, which would be legal tender, or, like, in other words, if it had to be a coin, like coinage, because it's being produced by the mint, or if it could be a bullion round, if it could be some type of, generic government produced bullion, but that wasn't a coin, it wasn't assigned a monetary value. Now let's say that was the case. What the mechanism is, again, I can't say, because it's something I'm still thinking about. But let's say that happened. What would that do to the stacking community? What would that do to metals in general, bullion metals in general? Would that be a viable option? Because, okay, I'm trying to think about it. Obviously, silver, primarily industrial metal, right? So the mint producing these bullion rounds at a set price over spot wouldn't affect anything, because, again, it's not affecting spot. Spot is still a market-driven thing. Okay, so we're good there. The mint being able to produce a non-coin, I think they are allowed to do that because they produce metals, right? They produce like the Coast Guard metal or the Navy metal and this and that. So those aren't coins, are they? So I think we're good there. The question then becomes, like, why would they do anything like that? Well, that is the hard one to answer, because really, I think the big thing that stackers don't realize is, again, think about the powers that be. And again, the stacking community is very big on, the cabal that controls everything and blah, blah, blah. Okay, let's think about that. Who are the people who really control what happens in this country? The corporations. I mean, let's make no mistake. The corporations who have the money to be able to hire lobbyists and buy all our politicians and, get their legislation passed, in line with their agenda, those are the ones that really run the show. Okay, let's explore that further. What corporations really dominate that? Well, probably financial companies, the banks, the investment firms. There are a lot of other ones that, like, for example, the auto dealers associations and things like that, which people wouldn't think about. But I read a surprising statistic that something like some high percentage of really wealthy people have an interest in, like, auto dealerships and things like that, which is crazy. Like, it's not something you would think about. But then when you think about auto dealerships and, like, even the whole way that system works in this country, as far as you can't just go to a dealer that deals in all kinds of cars. You go to the Toyota dealer, they sell Toyotas. You go to the Honda dealer, they sell Hondas. And same thing with all the other companies. They may have used cars, but they don't distribute anything but the dealer brand, which is something that, again, came into place because the auto lobby made it that way, so that they could have a stranglehold over, the competition in the market. Crazy things. But, like, think about all these companies and the power that they have to, pass or have legislation passed, on their behalf. That's the way the world works. That's the way that the country that we live in works. Now, think about that with regard to gold and silver. The banks have no interest in gold and silver being, any type of monetary instrument. In fact, even things like goldbacks, that's why, to me, goldbacks are kind of a joke. Like, you hear so many coin shop owners or coin dealers, goldbacks, it's going to take off, and look, my state approved. Nobody cares, because as long as the banks are around, that kind of stuff will never gain traction. The banks won't let it. You take your gold back to the bank, they're going to laugh at you. That's just the way it is, and that's the way it will be. So if the mint was going to produce, blanks, or not blanks, but rounds at a set price over spot, what would be the real ramifications of that? First, in my opinion, it would eliminate a lot of business for, obviously, the bullion dealers. The bullion dealers would then have to go to, and even the private mint, Sunshine, all these other, they would have to go from, just producing whatever it is they produce to finding some reason why you're going to buy theirs over just stacking, the cheapest silver you can get your hands on, which would probably be these, government minted bullion, whether it's gold or silver. Secondly, I think the other interesting thing is, I wonder how that would affect adoption of metals by the common person. if people became more aware of like, hey, I can get gold and silver directly from the mint for a set price. I don't have to worry about getting shafted by premiums or online dealers or things like that, and I get the reputation of the US government being behind whatever bullion I'm getting, so I'm not going to buy a fake per se. Maybe that would lead to more adoption of gold and silver, not necessarily as the monetary instrument that stackers want it to be, but just as a part of the financial picture for just regular Americans. I think it's a really interesting concept, and I think there's definitely something there as far as would that be a viable option. I'm just wondering to myself, because I know there's a lot of laws with regard to what the mission of the mint, the actual mint is, and how things are set up. But I wonder, if there was bullion rounds, not necessarily coinage, but bullion rounds minted by the US Mint, and you were able to buy them at a set price over spot, would that take a lot of your money away from the bullion dealers and stacking in general? I would think for pure stackers, it's a no-brainer. Of course it would, because that would be the cheapest bullion they could get. Now, for stack electors and collectors, that obviously there would still be a market there, but it would really take the power away from the bullion dealers. It would really take away this stranglehold that they have to just arbitrarily change the premium environment, which is something that, to me, makes the stacking hobby kind of difficult when premiums are swinging for no reason up and down. Well, it's demand based. No, it's definitely not demand based. That is not true at all. That is not true at all. People who say that the premiums on this bullion is based on demand is complete BS. I mean, with all the stories that we've seen from the bullion dealers and like the eagles and different things that they've kind of manipulated and not been clear about, we know that prices on premiums are definitely just a profit motive. Which, I mean, that's fine. This is America, right? We're all about making profit. But on something that is considered a near money alternative, such as metals, especially gold, I would say, having access to something that's uniform from the government itself, that would be amazing. But you tell me, what am I missing here? Is it a viable option, or am I just pie in the sky?